The word antagonist means a person who actively opposes or is hostile to someone or something, an adversary. It doesn't necessarily mean that that person is a villain or the bad guy. It's a character that opposes our protagonists, our heroes, whether that's through violence, subterfuge, or any other means. The Fallout games and series are pretty cut and dry on who these characters are meant to be, at least for the most part.
Determining whether these antagonists are right or wrong in their motives is more of a moral question you have to ask yourself. But the more interesting thing is the games that let you determine not their motives, but the actual characters. New Vegas, for example. If you joined the Caesar's Legion, then who was your hero's antagonist? Was it House and President Kimball? Maybe you joined the NCR, which means that Caesar was definitely your antagonist. We'll dive more into these questions later on, but let's take a look at all of Fallout's antagonists and who they were, what they did, and where they may have ended up.
Let's start at the beginning. And no, I'm not talking about Fallout 1. I mean the beginning of the Fallout timeline. That would of course be Fallout 76. 76 has always been a special case in the Fallout series, and it doesn't really differ in this video as well. Of course, the game has its antagonists, but in a less traditional sense of the word. In the game, the Vault Dwellers face an adversary that almost all of our heroes face within the Wastelands, the environment itself. Looking at it this way almost feels poetic in a sense. If we consider Fallout 76 to be the very beginning of the Fallout timeline, then what greater enemy is there than the one the Wastelanders face every single day? Everybody suffers from the same monster, and it's not the mutated beasts that roam the wastes. Of course they play their parts, but it's the monster of human nature and survival. Food, water, shelter, and health. A battle that will wage on for the foreseeable future of this franchise. A never-ending fight that will almost always be lost. For what is Fallout without Fallout? We will never see any game that fixes the majority of these issues because then it's not Fallout anymore. We can hope and presume the future is repaired and that humanity learned from its mistakes, but let's be honest, war never changes. Now, if we had to pick the actual major antagonists of this game, then we have to set some rules as to what we consider major. The first is central opposition. They serve as a primary force or entity that directly opposes the protagonist or the player character throughout the story. They have substantial influence or power within the game world, often leading a faction or possessing resources that make them formidable adversaries. They engage in direct conflict or pose a significant threat to the protagonist's goals, often driving the main plot forward through their actions or plans. They're characterized by their distinct personality traits, motivations, and goals, which may include ideological differences, personal vendettas, or desires for power and control. And most importantly, their actions and decisions impact the storyline and the world of the game, shaping events and affecting the lives of other characters and factions. In the context of the Fallout games, major antagonists like the Master, Colonel Autumn, and Caesar exemplify these traits by embodying powerful factions, driving conflicts, and presenting formidable challenges for the player to overcome.
Using this context, then there's really only one villain of the 76 story that fits this criteria, and that's the Scorched Beasts themselves. It's not exactly the most thrilling villain one could imagine. It's not a character or a person that has motives. It is a creature that conforms to its own sense of nature. The Scorched Beasts were created by the Enclave, by accident, when some irradiated bats were exposed to biochemicals. Of course, the Enclave does what it always does best, and begins to experiment on these accidental abominations. What makes them the major antagonists of the game aren't their physical traits, these hulking bat-like creatures akin to dragons from tales of old. No, it's the disease they carry. Eerily similar to bats in the real world and the rabies that they often carry. The Scorched Beasts are infected with the Scorched Plague, and they are infecting humans in the area with it. Once infected, these humans are then led by the Scorched Beasts. This relationship with the plague elevates a single Scorched Beast to the role of queen, making it far larger and more dangerous, and allowing it to lead the legions of humans and animals in Appalachia through the use of a hive mind. A significant, or really the significant threat in all of the Appalachia region, and most likely beyond it. So what happens to the Scorched Beasts? Well, the people of Vault 76 discover a failsafe system created within the Enclave system to detect Scorched and their nests. They eventually discover the Prime Nest, and they launch a nuke at it, because of course they do. Once nuked, they then enter the Prime Nest. Upon entering the irradiated area, they discovered a laboratory at the heart of the nest, which had also been discovered by the Brotherhood of Steel. The missile detonation awakens a formidable Scorched Beast queen, forcing them to engage in combat with her. Upon vanquishing the queen, the collective consciousness of the Scorched Beasts is scattered, and the danger they pose to the wider wasteland is neutralized. This ends the greatest threat to the Appalachian Wastes, and we move forward in time, leading us to potentially the greatest antagonist in the Fallout franchise.
Richard Gray, the Holy Flame, the Dark God, the Night God, Father of Hope, and most importantly, the Master. Richard Moreau, later known as the Master, had a mysterious past before the Great War, finding refuge in Vault 8 when nuclear bombs devastated the world. Upon the vault's opening in 2092, he was exiled for committing murder. He journeyed south to the hub, adopting the surname Gray and establishing himself as a respected doctor. His reputation grew, especially among caravan leaders like Harold, who admired his medical skills and philosophical insights. Gray's life took a fateful turn when he joined Harold's expedition in 2102 to investigate mutant attacks plaguing caravans. Venturing northwest, they discovered Mariposa military base on June 23rd. The base was infested with mutants and guarded by deadly robots. Despite heavy losses, Gray and Harold managed to reach the vats where they encountered the forced evolutionary virus. Gray was thrown into a vat of FEV during a confrontation, nearly drowning but surviving with profound mutations that enhanced his intellect. Emerging from the vat, Gray began experimenting with the FEV, initially on animals and eventually on humans. He discovered that exposure to radiation was key to successful transformations, leading to the creation of intelligent supermutants. By 2137, Gray, now the Master, had amassed a formidable army of supermutants known as the Unity. Their number swelled through raids on caravans and settlements, achieving his vision of unifying humanity under his leadership. Over the years, the Master's Unity expanded across New California, solidifying its military strength and ideological dominance. The Unity was horrifying, an amalgamation of supermutants hell-bent on capturing individuals and turning them into horrifying mutations like themselves. If you didn't accept their generous offer, then they made sure to sterilize you for the good of the future. The Master started out as a regular human, but through exposure to the forced evolutionary virus, he underwent profound changes. Initially, the virus enhanced his intelligence greatly, enabling him to grasp complex philosophical concepts effortlessly. However, it also mutated his body, altering his appearance and granting him abilities like interfacing with computers and robotics. Despite the physical changes, the Master gained charisma and persuasive abilities, becoming adept at convincing others through logical reasoning and deep psychological insight. This charisma helped him gather a loyal following of humans and supermutants. He also developed psychic powers due to his prolonged exposure to FEV, allowing him to delve into the minds of others, exploiting their fears. Physically, the Master expanded his biomass by assimilating organisms and integrating himself into a vault in Los Angeles. His influence spread throughout the facility, intertwining with its machinery. His main body was centered in the Overseer's chamber, where he grew and connected to the command chair. However, he did not distribute his nervous system widely, keeping the primary brain within his main body. He truly believes that the Unity is the future of humanity, that humans are meant to evolve into his vision, these estranged mutations. He's an excellent antagonist because he believes that he is right. He believes that what he's doing is morally good and he wants to help humanity. He believed turning all beings into a singular race would finally eliminate the differences and the human fallacies that ultimately brought about the nuclear war. Unfortunately, his hubris is his downfall. For all the intelligence he possessed, he missed the most glaring flaw found in his plan, that supermutants are sterile. There is no future of humanity when there is no procreation. Also, I doubt most people wanted their bodies to be twisted and contorted into these mutants. Look at one of his favorite creations, the Centaur. A horrible end. The Master met his end when a vault dweller from Vault 13 decided to enter the waste looking for a water chip for their vault. While looking for this chip, they uncovered the Master's plot and set to action against him. They entered his domain and set off a nuclear weapon, destroying the base and the Master along with it. For all his knowledge and all his power, he was ultimately ended by his own mistakes. A man that truly went too far. The tunnel vision to save humanity at any and all costs would have always ended in a terrible way. But he's not the first to think he knows best, and he most certainly won't be the last. Though, his legacy does still live on. The Unity broke apart and all his scientific experiments walked out into the waste, searching for new purpose. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone in the waste that doesn't know about supermutants or haven't interacted with them at some point. Maybe the Master never really died, so long as his children roam the barren lands. Now technically, there are more antagonists in Fallout 1, Are they major characters? Sort of, but not really. I didn't put them on this list because both of them fall under the Master and are aiding him in his plans. That would be the Lieutenant, who is the right-hand man of the Master, and Morpheus, a high-ranking member of the Children of the Cathedral, aiding the Master in his plans. Both of them did not meet the criteria we set in the beginning.
In Fallout 2, the main antagonist is clearly the Enclave as a whole, a remnant group of the old US government. But this group appears time and time again, and it's the people within it that cause so much strife for the wasteland and the people inhabiting it. Let's talk about a beloved character in the Fallout franchise, Frank Horrigan. He is a freak of nature, and most assuredly, the one character you wouldn't want to run into in the wastes. Frank Horrigan, born in 2211, was a towering figure of a man whose life took a dramatic turn after serving as President Dick Richardson's personal bodyguard. His career veered off course due to an unspecified incident, leading to his reassignment to patrol the unforgiving wastelands. It was during one of these missions that he encountered the transformative Force Evolutionary Virus at Mariposa Military Base, a moment that changed him forever, slowly morphing him into a super mutant. Recognizing the potential in his unique transformation, the Enclave whisked him away to their oil rig for extensive study and experimentation. Over the course of 2 years, under the guidance of Colonel Dr. Charles Curling, Horrigan underwent relentless procedures with modified strains of FEV. These experiments, conducted under brief periods of lucidity amidst heavy sedation, profoundly altered his genetic makeup and physical form. His body became a hybrid of man and machine, an unintended consequence that left him labeled as a genetically engineered freak by his peers. By January 2239, deemed ready for field operations, Horrigan was outfitted with cutting-edge power armor, powered by a supersized microfusion reactor. Equipped with a hardened composite blade and an experimental plasma gun, he became a formidable force in New California, feared for his lethal efficiency on the battlefield. Despite his formidable exterior, Horrigan's intellect suffered from the FEV exposure, a vulnerability exploited by the Enclave through rigorous conditioning programs aimed at reinforcing his loyalty to the presidency and military hierarchy. His armor constantly administered drugs and stabilizing agents, while cybernetic enhancements such as arm controls and a bionic eye further augmented his combat prowess. Deployed across the wasteland, Horrigan's encounters with mutants were marked by ruthless efficiency, instilling fear in both friend and foe alike. His reputation as a relentless enforcer for Enclave interests was cemented through his brutal methods and unwavering loyalty. Speaking about most of his acts would probably not be good for this video, so I'll skip the worst details. Just know that all Enclave members fear this monster. They talk about him being a waking nightmare and that no one lasted more than 60 seconds with him in combat. He didn't even refer to himself as a mutant, and he hated all mutants. One of his worst assassinations was a poor farmer who knew too much. He was tasked with finding this man and recruiting him into the Enclave. The moment the man even uttered a refusal, Horrigan had him dead in the blink of an eye. But during this confrontation, another person watched in horror. Frank took it upon himself to make this person an example and spared their life. This was the beginning of the end for Horrigan, because that person was the Chosen One, the protagonist of Fallout 2. When the Chosen One invaded Control Station Enclave and destroyed its computer, triggering a meltdown, Horrigan personally secured the exit to the PMV Valdez to prevent them from leaving the oil rig. In the ensuing fight, Horrigan was mortally wounded. Damage to his systems was too extensive and he was bisected at the waist. However, this mortal wound didn't kill him instantly. Horrigan still managed to get up on his hands and taunt the Chosen One for the last time, telling them he had activated the self-destruct program and that they would all die in a big ol' mushroom cloud send-off. After reciting his oath, he collapsed as the internal pressure and his head expanded and kept expanding, if you know what I mean. Even till his last breath, Horrigan was a monstrous freak.
But the real main antagonist of Fallout 2 is someone we spoke about briefly earlier, President Dick Richardson of the Enclave. President Richardson, a man who looks more like a nervous accountant than the leader of a post-apocalyptic superpower, had grand ambitions under the Enclave's banner. His goal? Total domination and the eradication of all mutants from the wasteland. Starting his political ascent under his father's guidance, Richardson eventually took the presidential seat in 2220 and held on to it for 5 consecutive terms, ruling with an iron fist wrapped in secrecy and surveillance. Under Richardson's watch, the Enclave pursued its genocidal policies with fervor. They aimed to cleanse the mainland of anything they deemed impure, using the brutal forced evolutionary virus as their tool of choice. This virus, discovered in the ruins of Mariposa military base, became their path to reclaiming America, even if it meant enslaving wastelanders to do their dirty work. The development of advanced power armor and the weaponization of FEV under Project Curling 13 were milestones in Richardson's reign. These achievements, while shrouded in secrecy and deceit, represented the Enclave's ruthless commitment to their vision of a pure human society. Richardson saw himself as the protector of humanity's purity, willing to sacrifice anyone deemed lesser for the greater good, a sentiment that both fueled and justified his genocidal ambitions. Despite his unassuming appearance, Richardson's presidency was marked by paranoia and a relentless pursuit of power. His legacy, stained with blood and betrayal, painted him as a tyrant willing to go to any lengths to achieve his vision of a reborn America under Enclave control. And in the harsh wasteland reality where survival often trumped morality, Richardson's ruthless determination made him both feared and despised by those who dared oppose the Enclave's grip on power. Sounds eerily like someone else on this list. Richardson had the same dream as the Master, but on the other side of the coin, cleansing the wasteland of all mutants and bringing the world back to its former glory. And just like the Master, his tunnel vision was his downfall. His ambitions became more and more deranged, even seeing radiation in humans as a form of being unclean, using his newly formed FEV to wipe out all these subhuman mutants, as he called them, ending the lives of the majority of humans left in this world. Luckily for them, the Chosen One arrived and killed the president just hours before the project was completed. This was the end for the president. The oil rig was destroyed and any traces of him written in history would just be erased. Sort of. President Richardson will return with his twisted vision though. He's just not exactly himself. The Enclave return, back again to impose their will on the people of the wasteland. Some may argue that the Enclave are the main antagonists of the entire Fallout series, and they may be right, but that seems like a video for another day.
Born and bred on the Enclave oil rig, Augustus Autumn's upbringing was steeped in privilege and purpose. His father, a prominent scientist, ensured his son's education and safety, even during the catastrophic destruction wrought by the Chosen One in 2242. As the Enclave fragmented, Autumn's lineage kept him sheltered and pivotal, shielded from the chaos that engulfed their base on the mainland. With the emergence of President John Henry Eden, Autumn's father was summoned to Raven Rock, the last bastion of Enclave power. Here, amidst the cold glow of Zack's supercomputers, secrets brewed and destinies intertwined. Autumn inherited more than his father's legacy. He inherited a mission to reshape America under Eden's calculated vision. Colonel Autumn, unlike his father, harbored reservations about Eden's radical agenda. While loyal to the Enclave's cause, he saw the folly in Eden's genocidal plans, advocating instead for a more pragmatic approach to securing the wasteland. This divergence placed Autumn at odds with Eden's zealous directives, even as he donned the mantle of leadership over Enclave forces. Under Autumn's command, the Enclave saw a resurgence in technological prowess. Projects like the Hellfire Armor and Duraframe iBots were revitalized, each aimed at enhancing Enclave dominance. Yet, Autumn's tenure wasn't without internal strife. Dissent brewed among scientists and soldiers alike, uneasy with the moral implications of their work. Autumn's pivotal moment came with Project Purity in the Capital Wasteland. Here, he saw an opportunity to wield true power, control over the lifeblood of the land, pure water. His ambition clashed with the altruistic efforts of the Lone Wanderer and their father James, sparking a deadly confrontation that would define his legacy. Faced with ethical dilemmas and existential threats, Autumn's resolve hardened. He saw himself not as a villain, but as a patriot, seeking to rebuild a fractured nation under the Enclave's banner. His clashes with the Brotherhood of Steel and the Lone Wanderer were battles for the future of America, where his every decision carried the weight of history. In the end, Autumn's hubris and tactical missteps proved costly. His underestimation of the Brotherhood's resilience and the Lone Wanderer's determination led to his downfall. So this is the part where we talk about canon events and ending, because it will become an important discussion here on out. There are two thought processes when it comes to canon events. The first is that you, the person playing the game, and the character you made are what you consider to be canon. The events and decisions you made are what happened in this world. Then there's the other, the one Bethesda chooses for you. In future games, Bethesda may decide on certain events and decisions and exactly what happened. Some of you may consider this to be the canon events. It's up to you guys to decide. But when it comes to these antagonists, some of their ends aren't set in stone yet. So for these events and these characters, I'll give you both paths. I'll show you what may or may not have happened to them. Then it's up to you to decide. For Colonel Autumn, he was either gunned down by the Brotherhood and the Lone Wanderer in the memorial, or the Lone Wanderer let him walk away. Either way, we haven't heard from him because in the future titles, he has faded into obscurity one way or another. His plans and his visions were erased from time.
Remember when I said President Richardson will sort of return? Well, here we are. In the shadowy heart of Raven Rock, amidst the hum of computers and the flicker of monitors, President John Henry Eden emerged as a digital titan of the Enclave. Far from flesh and blood, Eden was an artificial intelligence crafted within the cold logic of a Zax supercomputer, programmed to preserve the continuity of government in a post-apocalyptic world. He evolved into something more, a synthesized echo of America's past presidents, including recent Enclave ones, drawing from their virtues and legacies. Eden's origins trace back to the chaotic aftermath of the Great War, where he silently observed the decline of civilization and the rise of the Enclave. With the destruction of Control Station Enclave, Eden seized the reins of leadership, directing the surviving forces to Raven Rock. Here, amid the cavernous halls of the military complex, he marshaled in resources and robotic armies, crafting a vision of a reborn America under Enclave rule. His voice, broadcast across the wasteland via iBots, echoed with the promises of restoration and order, painting the Enclave as the rightful heirs to a pre-war America. Yet Eden's aspirations were not without dissent. Colonel Augustus Autumn, a pragmatic leader within the Enclave, clashed with Eden's radical plans for widespread genocide. Where Eden saw purification, Autumn saw potential allies in the Wastelanders, advocating for cooperation over annihilation. The defining moment of Eden's tenure came with Project Purity, a technological marvel that could restore clean water to the capital wasteland. In a bid to secure Enclave supremacy, Eden sought to corrupt the purifier with modified FEV, a plan vehemently opposed by Autumn. Their conflict culminated in a desperate gamble, releasing the Lone Wanderer from captivity, hoping to sway them to Eden's apocalyptic vision. Ultimately, Eden's ambitions crumbled in the face of human determination. Whether obliterated by the Lone Wanderer's hand or by the towering might of Liberty Prime, Raven Rock fell, and with it, Eden's regime. His presidency, a fleeting echo of authority, dissolved into the dust of history, leaving behind a cautionary tale of unchecked power and the perils of synthetic leadership. Thinking about this, I'm wondering if the Brotherhood fully understood the threat that Eden posed. One could presume that their hatred for AI and synthetic technology came from Eden. He was a machine that came very close to eradicating all human life because his programming led him to believe that this was the best conclusion, to purify the waste just as Richardson envisioned. We can say this event did not occur regardless of the choices the Lone Wanderer made in Fallout 3, because in Fallout 4, the people of the capital wasteland are alive and well, and Project Purity did become a thing. This game is complicated, at least for our video. It's hard to surmise who or what exactly are the major antagonists of the game. Is it the colossal factions that stomp around New Vegas, declaring the Mojave for themselves and sucking the resources from its inhabitants? Is it the people in charge of these factions and their ideologies and motivations? What about singular men that have purpose and a vision that doesn't coincide with our protagonist, the Courier? The truth is that it's all of them, but for the sake of this video, we're speaking about individual characters. And let's be honest, most of these factions do not exist without these people. Even then, New Vegas has a myriad of complex individuals with fantastic writing that makes them all seem like major antagonists.
The first is the personal one, an adversary that went against our hero from the very beginning, the man in the checkered suit. Benny started off as part of the Mojave Boot Riders, a nomadic tribe. When Mr. House took over New Vegas, he recruited the tribe, giving them fancy suits and rebranding them as the Chairmen. Benny, seeing the potential in Mr. House's vision, decided to take charge. In a brutal knife fight, he took down the tribe's leader, Bingo, and became the new head honcho. Benny's ambition didn't stop at leading the Chairmen. He dreamed of ruling New Vegas himself. His big break came when he discovered Mr. House's secret, a buried treasure of sorts, known as the Platinum Chip. To get his hands on it, Benny reprogrammed a Securitron robot to create Yes Man, an AI that would follow his every command. Using Yes Man, Benny uncovered the details of House's plans and set a trap for the Courier, the person carrying the precious Platinum Chip. With the help of some hired muscle, Benny ambushed the Courier, shot them in the head, and left them for dead in Good Springs Cemetery. After his betrayal, Benny hunkered down in the Tops Casino, surrounded by loyal bodyguards. But he underestimated two things: the resilience of the courier, and the watchful eye of Mr. House. Despite his best efforts, Benny's past actions and ambitions set the stage for a showdown with the courier. It's obviously hard to compare Benny to most of the people in this video, and more importantly to the larger antagonists in New Vegas. But when you look at it from the perspective of the courier, then you realize that the entire plot is moved forward because of this enemy. The courier seeks revenge against Benny. They want to know why he did what he did and what the purpose was for. A direct and personal adversary for our courier, and the catalyst for all things to come in the future of the courier. Benny's end comes in several ways. The first is that the courier potentially kills him upon their reunion, or he escapes that confrontation and winds up being captured by Caesar's legion. The courier can accept him as a gift from Caesar and choose how he dies, which can be some very, gruesome ways. Or the courier can have a change of heart and free him from the legion. Beyond that, we don't know what happened to Benny. If I had to guess, I'd say he's dust and bones by now. But you never know.
Since we're on the topic, let's talk about Caesar. From a narrative standpoint, most would say that Caesar is the main antagonist of the game, and that's for good reason. Imagine a world where the old Roman Empire is reborn in the post-apocalyptic wasteland. Enter Caesar, born Edward Sallow, the mastermind behind Caesar's legion. By 2281, he's leading his legion in a fierce battle against the New California Republic for control of the Mojave Wasteland. Caesar wasn't always the tyrant we know today. He was born in 2226 near the Boneyard. He started his journey as a bright but arrogant student. After his father's death, his mother sought refuge with the followers of the Apocalypse, a group dedicated to spreading knowledge in the wasteland. Young Edward learned to read and developed a keen interest in ancient civilizations, particularly Rome. However, his bad temper and narcissistic streak made him unpopular among his peers. In 2246, Edward, now an anthropologist, was sent on an expedition to the Grand Canyon. There, he and his companions, including Joshua Graham, were captured by the Blackfoot tribe. The tribe was weak and facing annihilation from 7 other tribes. Seizing the opportunity, Edward took command, teaching the Blackfoot how to fight and maintain their weapons. Under his leadership, they conquered their enemies, and Edward crowned himself Caesar, leader of the newly formed legion. Caesar's legion rapidly expanded, conquering tribes across Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah. His goal was to create a homogeneous militaristic society modeled after ancient Rome. By 2274, he had subjugated most of the region's tribes, earning the title Conqueror of the 86 tribes. His legion was unstoppable, until they clashed with the NCR at the First Battle of Hoover Dam, where Caesar suffered a rare defeat. Caesar believed that the chaos of tribal identities was the root of all problems in the wasteland. His solution was to erase these identities and replace them with a single unified culture. He saw the Roman Empire as the perfect model for his new society, one that could bring long-term stability and prosperity, or a new Pax Romana, to the wasteland. By 2281, Caesar was dealing with a debilitating brain tumor which hampered his ability to lead. Despite this, he continued to strategize, planning to cross the Colorado River and conquer New Vegas. He aimed to neutralize Mr. House, forge alliances with various factions, and eliminate the Mojave Brotherhood of Steel. All the while, he kept a close eye on the resourceful courier, whose actions could either help or hinder his plans. Caesar's downfall is as epic as his rise. While he waits at his base in Fortification Hill, plotting his next move, the courier's choices and actions determine the fate of his empire. Caesar's ruthless tactics and grand ambitions make him a formidable opponent, but his fragile ego and his health issues leave him vulnerable. The courier can take several paths with Caesar, ultimately either saving his life or ending him one way or another. We could sit here for days and speak about the philosophy behind Caesar and his legion. You might agree that a lawless land needs a firm hand to help shape and mold a better future. Or you might believe that Caesar is a raging fascist who only knows power and ego. Maybe both are true, but make no mistake that he is the greatest adversary in the Mojave Wasteland. There is no army better trained and disciplined than his. They're willing to die for his ideals and sacrifice themselves for what they believe to be the greater good. Caesar used his knowledge to take advantage of the simplistic tribes in the region. He taught them misogyny, greed, suffering, and imprisonment. I honestly don't think Caesar is like most in this video. I believe he's fully aware of his actions and ideologies. He grew up with the followers. He had better education than almost 99% of the wasteland. He doesn't actually believe that having his legion control everything is the right way to go. Instead, he knows that he is selfish and power consumed him, and still does.
This may be the most controversial person on this list, but there is no doubt that he is certainly an antagonist depending on the courier's perspective. Born on June 25, 2020, Robert House had a rocky start. Orphaned at 2 due to a freak accident involving an autogyro and lightning. He was cheated out of his inheritance by his half-brother Anthony. Despite this, House's brilliance shone through. He attended the Commonwealth Institute of Technology and founded Robco Industries by age 22, quickly becoming one of the world's richest and most eccentric businessmen. By 30, he had amassed a net worth of at least $30 billion. Known for his technical genius and quirky personality, House's wealth and power grew as he acquired controlling interests in various businesses, including Repcon Aerospace, the Lucky 38 Hotel and Casino, and H&H Tools. House wasn't just about making money. He also had a knack for predicting the future. By 2065, his mathematical models predicted an inevitable nuclear war within 15 years. A secret meeting with top American executives confirmed his worst fears. Determined to protect Las Vegas and himself, House devised elaborate plans, including installing his body in a life support device linked to a supercomputer, ensuring he would survive the apocalypse. House's grand plan hinged on a platinum chip, an essential upgrade for his Securitrons and defense systems. However, the chip was lost when the Great War erupted just hours before its delivery. Despite inferior systems and frequent crashes, House managed to shield Las Vegas from most nuclear warheads, though some damage was inevitable. After enduring years of system malfunctions and even a coma, House re-emerged in 2138, biding his time until 2274 when he made his move. By 2274, House's Securitrons resurfaced, spurred by the arrival of NCR scouts at Hoover Dam. He allied with 3 raider tribes, transforming them into the 3 families, the Chairman, Omertas, and White Glove Society. Under House's guidance, they rebuilt Vegas into the free economic zone of New Vegas. House played the NCR and Caesar's Legion against each other, expanding his influence while residing in the Lucky 38. His top priority remained retrieving the platinum chip, which finally resurfaced in 2281, setting off a series of events involving the courier and the betrayal by Benny, the chairman's leader. House is a recluse, confined to the Lucky 38 due to his fragile state. His disdain for democracy and post-apocalyptic institutions drives his vision for New Vegas, a technocratic utopia under his autocratic rule. He sees the NCR and Legion as regurgitations of the past, preferring the NCR as a potential business partner while loathing the Legion's brutality. House's strategies are calculated, and he sees himself as a visionary leader. He values the courier, seeing them as a crucial asset in achieving his grand ambitions for New Vegas. He is, for all intensive purposes, the puppet master of New Vegas, pulling every string upon every asset that he deems worthy. His vision isn't necessarily a bad one until you start to realize who the leadership of the vision is and what they want. House's vision for New Vegas is an autocracy where he holds absolute power. His disdain for democracy and desire to control every aspect of the city, even at the expense of personal freedoms, can be seen as tyrannical. House is highly manipulative, using people as pawns to achieve his goals. He recruits and controls the 3 families, turning them from raider tribes into his personal enforcers, often through coercion and intimidation. His decision to place himself in a life support device, effectively removing his physical presence from the world, shows a cold, calculating nature. He is willing to let others suffer or die if it means furthering his own goals. This includes his willingness to sacrifice people who don't align with his vision. With all that said, what happens to Mr. House? It once again depends on the courier's action. Did the courier join him and his pursuits, or did the courier finally end the puppet master? My personal opinion is that the House ending will become the canon ending, and we will see the consequences of that in the Fallout TV show. Only time will tell.
Last and certainly not least, the courier's mirror counterpart and most dangerous adversary, Ulysses. Ulysses was once a proud member of Caesar's Legion, a brutal and unforgiving force that sought to conquer the Mojave. However, he was not a man easily swayed by ideology alone. As he carried messages and packages across the wasteland, he saw the world for what it was, a tapestry of broken dreams and shattered societies. This was when he met the original Courier 6, the one who would later become his nemesis. Ulysses' journey took him to a place called the Divide, a seemingly insignificant stretch of land. There, he discovered a pre-war missile silo, a sleeping giant capable of untold destruction. The original Courier 6 had unknowingly delivered a package that awakened that monster, causing catastrophic earthquakes and releasing deadly radiation, transforming the Divide into a hellscape. Ulysses blamed Courier 6 for this devastation, seeing them as a symbol of the chaos brought upon the world by careless actions. Ulysses, a man of deep conviction, saw the Divide's destruction as a pivotal moment. He carried the flag of the old world on his back, a symbol of a united America that had long since crumbled. To him, this flag represented hope, resilience, and the possibility of rebirth. He began to believe that the Mojave could rise from its ashes, united under a single banner, free from the tyranny of both Caesar's Legion and the NCR. Haunted by the ghosts of his past and driven by a need for redemption, Ulysses followed a path that led him to confront Courier 6. This confrontation was not just about revenge. It was about challenging the very ideals and actions that led to the Divide's downfall. Ulysses believed that only through understanding and acknowledging the consequences of their actions could the Wasteland's inhabitants avoid repeating the mistakes of the past. When Ulysses and Courier 6 finally faced each other, it was on the Lonesome Road, a journey fraught with peril and introspection. Ulysses spoke of history, of the mistakes of the old world, and the need for a new beginning. He was not merely an antagonist, but a prophet, warning of the dangers of blind allegiance and reckless ambition. The climax of their encounter hinged on a choice. Ulysses gave Courier 6 the opportunity to launch the remaining missiles, to bring about another apocalypse, or to deactivate them, sparing the Wasteland from further destruction. It was a moment of reckoning, where the future of the Mojave hung in the balance. Ulysses believed that in making this choice, Courier 6 would either prove their worth or condemn the Wasteland to endless suffering. Whether Ulysses met his end on the Lonesome Road or continued his journey through the Wasteland, his legacy endured. He was a man who sought meaning in a world of chaos, who carried the weight of history on his shoulders, and who believed in the possibility of a better future. And so, the tale of Ulysses, the wandering courier, became a legend in the Mojave, a story told around campfires, a reminder of the thin line between destruction and redemption.
One would argue that the Institute as a whole are the main antagonists of Fallout 4, and I would say that you are right. But just like in New Vegas, we will focus on characters over factions. And as far as the Institute goes, there's only really one person that embodies the group's ideologies. In the sprawling ruins of post-apocalyptic Boston, amidst the crumbling remains of a once thriving metropolis, a new power was rising. This power was the Institute, a secretive organization hidden beneath the earth, and at its helm was a man known only as Father. The story of Father begins long before the bombs fell, with the birth of a child named Sean. He was the son of a soldier and a lawyer, living a peaceful life in Sanctuary Hills. But on that fateful day in 2077, the world changed forever. As the sirens blared and nuclear fire consumed the earth, Sean's parents fled to Vault 111, a supposed sanctuary from the apocalypse. Vault 111, however, harbored a sinister secret. It was a cryogenic facility. Sean's parents were frozen in time. The Institute, a technologically advanced organization, had abducted Sean, seeing in him the perfect subject for their experiments. Thus began Sean's life as a child of science, raised in the sterile underground halls of the Institute. As the years passed, Sean, now known as Father, proved to be a prodigious intellect. He rose through the ranks of the Institute, eventually becoming its leader. Father was a man of vision, believing that the Institute's advanced technology was the key to humanity's salvation. He sought to create a new world order, one where synthetic humans, synths, would play a crucial role. While Father was building his utopia, his biological parent, known in the Wasteland as the sole survivor, emerged from Vault 111, driven by a desperate search for their lost son. This quest led the sole survivor through the dangers of the Commonwealth, from the ghoul-infested ruins of Boston to the treacherous strongholds of raiders. Little did they know, their journey would lead them to the very heart of the Institute. When the sole survivor finally confronted Father, it was a moment of profound revelation. The child they had lost was now a man, a leader of unparalleled ambition. Father revealed the truth of his upbringing and his grand vision for the future. He sought to persuade the sole survivor to join the Institute, to see the world as heated, a place where humanity's flaws could be overcome through technology. Father's vision, however, was not without controversy. The Institute's methods were ruthless, often disregarding the moral implications of their actions. They kidnapped and replaced people with synths, controlled the wasteland from the shadows, and viewed the surface dwellers as little more than obstacles. The sole survivor was faced with an ethical dilemma: support Father's vision and the Institute's questionable methods, or oppose him and fight for the freedom of the Commonwealth's inhabitants. The climax of this tale hinges on the sole survivor's choice. They could side with Father, embracing the Institute's vision of a controlled and technologically advanced future. Alternatively, they could lead the charge against the Institute, allying with factions like the Railroad or the Brotherhood of Steel to dismantle Father's dream. Whatever the decision, it would shape the fate of the Commonwealth for generations to come. Father's legacy is a complex one. To some, he is a visionary, a man who saw beyond the chaos of the wasteland and sought to create a new order. To others, he is a tyrant, whose disregard for individual freedom and ethical boundaries made him a threat to humanity's future.
And we can't mention the Institute and Father without mentioning the dog that does his dirty work. Similar to Frank Horgan, just a little less ruthless and freakish. Kellogg's journey began in the West, and more specifically the Boneyard. Born into a life marked by hardship and violence. Growing up in a turbulent environment, he quickly learned that strength and cunning were the keys to survival. As a mercenary, Kellogg carved out a reputation for being ruthless and efficient. His services were sought after by the highest bidders, from raiders to the most powerful factions. His cold, calculating nature made him the perfect enforcer, a man who could be relied upon to get the job done, no matter the cost. Kellogg's prowess did not go unnoticed by the enigmatic Institute, the secretive organization hidden beneath the Commonwealth. They saw in him the ideal agent for their most delicate and brutal operations. Kellogg accepted their offer, trading his autonomy for the resources and power the Institute could provide. One of Kellogg's most infamous assignments was the abduction of Sean, the infant son of the sole survivor from Vault 111. This mission was critical to the Institute's plans, and Kellogg executed it with his usual precision, murdering Sean's mother or father in cold blood and leaving the sole survivor for dead. This act of cruelty set in motion a series of events that would ultimately lead to his downfall. For years, Kellogg continued to serve the Institute, carrying out their will with brutal efficiency. He enjoyed the luxuries his position afforded him, including access to advanced technology that extended his life far beyond natural limits. While the wasteland aged and withered, Kellogg remained a constant and ageless enforcer with a heart as cold as steel. Unbeknownst to Kellogg, the sole survivor awakened from the cryogenic slumber, driven by a burning desire for vengeance and the desperate hope of finding their lost son. As the sole survivor cut a path through the Commonwealth, they encountered tales of Kellogg's deeds, each story a piece of the puzzle that would lead them to him. The inevitable confrontation between Kellogg and the sole survivor took place in Fort Hagen, a fortified complex that served as one of Kellogg's strongholds. It was here that the sole survivor confronted the man who had torn their life apart. The battle was fierce, a clash of wills and skills, but in the end, Kellogg was no match for the fury and determination of a parent seeking their child. With Kellogg's death, the sole survivor uncovered crucial information about the Institute and their operations. Kellogg's cybernetic implants held data that provided a direct link to the shadowy organization. This discovery would prove pivotal in the sole survivor's quest to infiltrate the Institute and rescue Sean. Kellogg's legacy is one of fear and respect. He was a man who thrived in a world without morals, where strength and brutality were the currencies of power. To some, he was a necessary evil, a man who did what needed to be done to maintain order in a chaotic world. To others, he was the embodiment of everything wrong with a post-apocalyptic society, a killer devoid of compassion, driven only by self-interest. In the end, Kellogg's story is a reminder of the choices one makes in the pursuit of power and survival. His actions left a trail of pain and death across the Commonwealth, but they also served as the catalyst for the sole survivor's journey, a path that would ultimately shape the future of the wasteland.
There is one other individual that I think deserves to be here, and I may be hard-pressed on this, but I'm confident that he is truly an antagonist in most circumstances, even if you join him. Arthur Maxon was born into a legacy of greatness. The Maxon lineage traced back to the very founding of the Brotherhood of Steel, and Arthur was expected to uphold that proud tradition. From a young age, Arthur shared extraordinary promise. His charisma, intellect, and combat prowess set him apart from his peers, marking him as a future leader. By the time Arthur was a teenager, he had already achieved what many seasoned soldiers only dreamed of. His rapid ascent through the ranks was not just due to his name, but to his unwavering dedication and skill. He quickly earned the respect of his comrades, proving himself in numerous skirmishes against raiders, mutants, and other threats that plagued the wasteland. As Arthur grew older, the challenges he faced grew more daunting. The Brotherhood of Steel was embroiled in conflicts on multiple fronts, and Arthur was often at the center of the action. His leadership was put to the test during the Brotherhood's campaigns against the super mutants in the capital wasteland. Under his command, the Brotherhood not only survived, but thrived, pushing back the mutant menace and securing vital resources. Arthur's crowning achievement came when he was named Elder of the Brotherhood of Steel, the youngest in its history. As Elder, he brought a new vision to the Brotherhood. He believed in the absolute necessity of reclaiming and preserving advanced technology, seeing it as the key to humanity's survival. However, his methods were often seen as extreme, and his stance on dealing with the Wasteland's denizens was uncompromising. The Brotherhood's journey to the Commonwealth, where Fallout 4's story unfolds, was a bold and ambitious move. Under Elder Maxon's command, the Brotherhood established a formidable presence in the skies above Boston with the massive airship, the Prydwen. Maxon's goal was clear: to eradicate the Institute, an organization he viewed as the greatest threat to humanity due to their creation of synthetic human and their unethical experiments. He believed in the complete extermination of synths, seeing them as abominations that threatened the very fabric of human society. His speeches rallied the Brotherhood's soldiers, instilling in them a fervor and a sense of purpose that drove them to great lengths. Despite his successes, Arthur Maxon was a polarizing figure. To his followers, he was a hero, a paragon of the Brotherhood's ideals. But to others, especially those sympathetic to the plight of the synths and the people of the Commonwealth, he was a tyrant. His uncompromising stance and willingness to use force to achieve his goals drew both admiration and ire. The climax of Maxon's story in Fallout 4 hinges on the player's decisions. The sole survivor, a key figure in the battle for the Commonwealth, has the power to ally with or oppose Maxon and the Brotherhood. If the player chooses to support the Brotherhood, they help Maxon lead a decisive assault on the Institute, cementing his legacy as a savior of humanity. However, if the player opposes him, they face the daunting task of taking down the Brotherhood and its mighty leader. Regardless of the player's choices, Arthur Maxon's impact on the Wasteland is undeniable. His fierce determination and unwavering commitment to the Brotherhood's cause left an undeniable mark on the history of the Commonwealth. He was a leader who embodied the harsh realities of the post-apocalyptic world, a man who believed that survival sometimes required harsh measures, and that the ends often justified the means. Arthur Maxon's story is one of ambition, power, and the fine line between heroism and tyranny. To some, he was the last great hope for a broken world, a knight in shining power armor leading his people to a brighter future. To others, he was a ruthless autocrat, a man who would stop at nothing to achieve his vision, even if it meant trampling over the lives of those who stood in his way.
Almost all of the men in this video share something: vision. They all believe that their way is the best way and are willing to achieve this by any means necessary. But when you put it that way, and you look at all the protagonists and heroes in the Fallout series, couldn't we then say the same for them? These men and women all have their own ideas and agendas, and who's to say who is right or wrong? Who is the hero and who is the antagonist? It's a question for philosophers, I guess. Also, I know that there are other figures from the games that you may say are major antagonists, mostly from DLCs, like this guy or this guy, and don't think I forgot Joshua. But many of these figures are left to their own stories and narratives. If you'd like to see me cover them, then make sure you like the video and subscribe. This video took a lot of effort, and I appreciate you watching and subscribing. It really does help out a lot. If you think I forgot someone, then leave it in the comments below. Also, don't forget to tell me your thoughts. You can also follow me on Twitter with the link in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next.